Well, put your mummy where your mouth is. It's Filmshake, the 90s movies podcast. I'm Jordan.
And this is Nick.
And this is episode 87. We are still talking about 1999 movies to finish up the 25th anniversary of 1999. But Nick, why are we talking about 1997's Under Wraps, the Mummy movie?
What?
That's what we were supposed to watch, right?
Who's in Under Wraps? Is Brendan Fraser in that too?
No, it's nobody. It's a Disney movie, Disney Channel movie, I think. I feel like that might have been the better punishment for this episode.
Oh
even
no,
though it's not 99. Yeah, we normally have our punishment movie at the beginning here, but since we're covering 1999's The Mummy. And our punishment film was The Mummy Returns. So I guess we'll have to cover the sequel at the end of the show, unless you want to do like true Filmshake fashion and just talk about it first and do everything out of order.
I think for the sake of my sanity, I want to save that for later. I'd like to build to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Is that fine with you?
That's fine with me. We'll do that after our main review, and then we'll do our usual trivia battle and movie connection and everything later on, too.
All right, that sounds like a plan. We'll keep The Mummy 2 under wraps, and we'll immediately dive into 1999's The Mummy. You know, I can test my microphone levels constantly before we record, and then every time I announce the movie, it's too hot. It's too damn hot.
Too damn hot, just like all the women in this movie. As I alluded to in my opener just now, is it weird to you that these films seem particularly interested in the ladies kissing the mummy? Like, am I remembering incorrectly already? Because you know my memory is garbage compared to yours, especially. But weren't there like multiple scenes in each of these movies where the old crusty mummy is kissing one of the ladies here?
It's a Nooks on a Moon. He wants to kiss her. It's his long-lost love that he's found over thousands of years.
Does he ever kiss Rachel Weisz, though?
Yes, he does, Jordan. She's laid down in bed, and his face is almost reconstructed, but not quite. It's still kind of nasty. Right. And he bends over while she's asleep. Because, Jordan, the visuals in this movie, there's so many cool shots. And the door is locked, and he comes through the keyhole as sand. And then he materializes, walks over to the beautiful Rachel Weisz. She's sleeping, and he gives her a big smooch. But she doesn't appreciate it, Jordan. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, you wake up, this half face is mushing on you. But yeah, there's just multiple scenes, especially in The Mummy Returns, which we'll keep under wraps, as you said. But it's just like every other scene, somebody was kissing, and somebody was kissing the gross mummy, or in some sort of dream state and waking up and realizing, oh no, it's not the beautiful Arnold Vosloo in his sexy 99 self. It's some skeletal, creepy mummy still materializing.
Yeah, there's a kiss in the original 1932 Mummy, but it's not with the mummy, unfortunately. Boris Karloff's lips have to stay really dehydrated.
Nice. Well, I guess they had to sex it up for these 90s kids, you know. Put a little romance in there.
Whenever Brendan Fraser described his character to Fangoria Magazine, which I picked up the Fangoria Magazine for this movie from 1999, and it had your favorite Idle Hands in there too.
Yes.
But Brendan Fraser said, my character in this is like the ultimate, like, late 90s extreme guy that just always wants to push boundaries and be as extreme as possible, like a late 90s dude, except he's in 1928 or whenever the movie takes place. Is it 28? I think it is.
And sometime in the 20s, yeah. But So he's just Mr. Extreme, as he put it.
In 1926. 1926 is what I meant. I meant that.
Sure. It's okay. You can get some trivia wrong, Nick. It's all right. You can put you in my shoes for once.
2 years is an eternity. I feel like I've been a mummy wrapped up in, you know what it is? Damn it. I am suffering my own mummy's curse right now, Jordan. And that curse is daylight savings time. It's killing me. I keep waking up every morning at 4 a.m. and I'm like, I'm ready to go. Even though I went to bed at midnight, let's start the day. And you know what? It's not time to start the day. It's time to roll around in bed and try to fall back asleep. And I don't do it. I'm a restless mummy rolling around.
Are you sleeping in a sarcophagus and wrapping yourself in toilet paper?
You know what? At this transition stage of my life right now, from one residence to hopefully my forever home, I am essentially sleeping in a damn sarcophagus. It's not comfortable. I can't sleep. The sun's coming up at weird times, Jordan. It's like I'm living in a constant, whatever the mummy is living in here. He's in that sarcophagus covered in beetles and they're eating him and he's starving and he's eating them back and eating himself. And there's just a constant state of being eaten and then eating what's eating you, living forever in perpetual torment. Yes, Jordan.
That is a pretty cool sentiment. They don't really dive into in the movie. Apparently, they go more into that idea in the novelization. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool reading up that trivia. Like eating the things that are eating you to keep you alive, so you're being eaten forever.
It's a mockery of life.
Mockery.
Arnold Vosloo is this mummy. We covered him in the great film with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Would you call Hard Target a great film? It was great enough for Filmshake, right?
It's great enough for Filmshake. Yeah, I loved Arnold Vosloo as Peek Van Cleef in Hard Target.
He's so fun in that movie, but there was a part of him, like in the back of his head, that thought, I'm never going to get the starring role in anything, like a big movie. And then they offered him The Mummy, and he said, okay, I'll do it, but I gotta play this thing completely straight. Like I am Romeo in Romeo and Juliet. Not for laughs, completely serious, completely Shakespearean. I'm gonna give it my all. It's amazing, Jordan. His performance in this is perfect for the movie, but it's kind of insane that was what he thought going into this, and he followed through on it, and it works.
It does work. I feel like this movie in itself is a perfect blending of so many different elements. And I liked hearing how Brendan Fraser described the production. He was like, we didn't really know what kind of movie we were making. We didn't know if this was a action movie, a horror movie, a romance movie, an adventure movie. And it's basically all those things, like a comedy. Like it's all those things blended together perfectly. And I feel like the magic of this movie is the effortlessness of all those things and how they come together. And Arnold Vosloo's take on the Mummy, it's obviously campy in some ways, right? Because, and maybe not even his performance, but just the writing around him, taking the guy's eyeballs and his tongue and the, transforming and rematerializing over and over and being scared of the cat and all, all that stuff. Like all that stuff's pretty campy and fun. But yeah, he does bring like a gravitas that this movie needs mixed in with all those other cool elements that are working so well. Like you've got Brendan Fraser, who we love. I think we both really love. We've talked about him in a previous episode when we covered Airheads, which is one of my favorite movies from the 90s. Huge Filmshake pillar of the 90s for me, at least. And his comedic timing is so wonderful. I know they picked him mainly for the role in this because of George of the Jungle and the success of that movie. And it's an adventure movie, but yeah, you would say that's more of a comedy than anything, right? A kid's movie comedy. And the comedic timing that he can bring to this while also being such a competent action hero. I mean, it obviously is compared to Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, the classic adventure movies. I mean, it's not set in the same time period, but it has that early 1900s vibe to it, obviously, being set in the 20s versus the 1940s or whatever. But either way, he's classic American adventurer in the desert. It has that vibe. And so, yeah, I just love that he can call back to those kind of things, but also his character here, Rick O'Connell, feels very real, feels very distinct at the same time.
Jordan, I'm sure you just made a lot of great points, but unfortunately, while you were making those points, I duck-duck-go'd the phrase Rachel Weisz, hot, and I've been supremely distracted.
Why are you duck-duck-going? Rachel Weisz is hot. I mean, obviously, we will talk about that. She is.
Everything you said there, I agree with. And now, there's a point that I'd like to make about Fraser's character overall that I can't make in totality until we get to the punishment film, which is 2001's The Mummy Returns. But obviously he's great here. I loved him in George of the Jungle. My whole family actually saw George of the Jungle in the theater twice because it was so enjoyable. Extremely enjoyable, lighthearted comedy for the whole family. It was great.
I don't think I've ever sat through that whole movie.
A lot of our listeners right now are saying, can you just pause and go watch it and then cover that instead? We love The Mummy, but Jordan hasn't seen George of the Jungle?
I know, that feels like a sacrilege. And I think I've talked about this before, but movies that were always on TV, I don't know if it was the overexposure or if that was a certain time and I was a certain age and that movie came out. No, it just like I was too old for it. It wasn't, the vibe of it really wasn't something that interested me at the time, but I'm sure I would watch it with my kids. I feel like I've tried to get my kids to watch that a few times actually, because I was like, oh, I want to watch that. And y'all would probably dig this. It's goofy and fun and everything. But yeah, I always saw like pieces of it on TV and I was just like, this isn't really my thing. I'm too cool for this, whatever. So yeah, I don't think I've ever watched that whole movie.
The movie that came on every week when I was around the age you were when that came out was Jaws. And my brother Charlie and I did watch that every single time it came on, every single week. And speaking of, we rented this movie. I did not see The Mummy in theaters, but it came out on VHS in September of 1999. And it looked cool when it came out of the theater. I didn't get the chance to see it. I just started working at the Winn-Dixie and I didn't have quite enough free time. I did get to see The Matrix and The Phantom Menace 5 times, but I missed The Mummy. But I knew when it came out on VHS, I had to watch it. It just looked cool. It looked like it was going to be good. Charlie and I probably watched that 5 million times in the weekend that we rented it. And I immediately, look, man, at the time, this was like a secret activity, but I own these movies in multiple formats now, so I'll cop to it. I definitely had 2 VCRs and did the record the VHS that you tape onto another tape. And I had a tape of this and The Matrix, since they both came out at similar times on the same tape. It was an amazing tape.
Were you taping from the rental copy?
Oh, yeah. I was.
Nice. Yeah, man. That's awesome.
Look, I own both those movies on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K now for The Matrix, so I've more than made up for that.
You've more than made up for your theft. No, I think I had told you guys, like, obviously been collecting the VHS and had The Mummy and The Mummy Returns coming to me in the mail so I could watch it on my CRT. Wasn't here in time for this episode. So it's like, oh man, I've got to watch the 1080p on my big widescreen. But no, it looked beautiful. I was kind of glad that I didn't watch it on the VHS for this particular watch. Because, man, does this movie hold up? The visuals, even the graphics for 99, but I was just really impressed at how, even in that opening shot where, we're in the ancient times, you see the pyramids and the Egypt background, the pharaoh and everything in the foreground. I was just like, wow, like this is stunning. This still looks really good 25 years later. I was kind of blown away by that because I feel like the last time I watched this, maybe it was like on a laptop or some crappy rip of it or something online, and it just didn't look that great. But yeah, watching it in high definition, I was really impressed at how much this held up.
I think the only thing that looks better at lower resolution, at how you would have watched it in 1999, is that opening sequence, the intro shot to the city of Thebes. You can kind of see the cracks in the compositing there. Now, it doesn't look bad. The immersion level there versus 1999 is not quite as high, but the filmmaking there is still awesome. The way that they kind of do a tribute to the old Universal logo, since, you know, the Mummy is a Universal property that they originated in 1932. You get that 1/8 size model of the city there, and then they composited in people, some real people, some CGI people, some catwalks. It just, man, look, the opening of this movie is so great.
It really is.
I love the whole movie, but those first 7 minutes, if those don't suck you in, the story of Imhotep, that they just bring you right into the film and what you're getting into, and the atmosphere and the visuals and the ingenuity of both, it's amazing. I love this opening sequence.
And talking about the camp vibe too, I would say there's a little bit of that even from the beginning, where, you know, you've got the narration. It's almost like this fairy tale. It's a little bit extreme or over the top as far as like how they kill the pharaoh and, you know, all that stuff. It just seems very campily done.
Her saying my body is no longer his temple is really over the top. The fact that she's wearing nothing but a little loincloth and then has a webbed body paint over herself, and that's it, and some pasties. And that's it. Patricia Velasquez. If Jordan and I are just going to fall into a giant lust pool like we did in The World Is Not Enough,
yes,
our first babe
just
here.
Carrying it on. I mean, we talked about the burlesque show and the pasties then. I mean, this is right on par. That's my movie connection, by the way.
Pasties. She looks great. She looks wonderful.
I mean, and probably one of the few good things about Mummy Returns is you get more Patricia Velasquez.
A lot more. And not just skin, just she's in the movie a lot more.
Yeah, she is a lot. But yes, that setup right from the get-go. Again, just everything about this movie feels effortless, where it's like it draws you in through the ancient times, and then it brings you into the 1920s with Brendan Fraser and his company during battle. And then just seamlessly, you're 3 years later, you've got Rachel Weisz in the library. You meet her brother. You go to see Brendan in jail. Like, I know I'm skipping over all this stuff maybe you want to talk about.
And then they beat the mummy.
Yeah, you meet the mummy. It's just like everything. Yeah, there's you beat the mummy. The movie's over. No. I love all that. It's great.
One thing from that opening sequence that every single time I watch it, I'm like, God, that's so awesome, is right after they kill the Pharaoh, which, God, they suck. The Pharaoh gave them everything and they betrayed him. But
how much do they suck, Nick? Betrayal, more betrayal.
More betrayal.
From our last episode. Just feeling the betrayal.
They kill the Pharaoh together. She deals the first blow, and then they hack the Pharaoh up. And they get caught. He's able to escape. She kills herself, and he's able to get her body. And you have this transition shot of him being taken away by his followers, because he has his own followers apart from the Pharaoh. And immediately you cut from this giant set inside this old, really, really cool looking Egyptian building to these horses galloping through the desert under the moonlight, holding torches in the air.
It looks pretty awesome.
It brings that kind of gothic bit from the old Universal movies into the movie, along with Jerry Goldsmith's just really epic sounding score. That part is so awesome. It looks and sounds and feels so awesome. The whole opening sequence does, but that one moment, it just feels so cool.
Yeah, the atmosphere there is really awesome. And just the close-ups then on Arnold Vosloo as he's riding through the night. He's trying to go and perform this ritual to bring back his love. Also kind of like a part of the campy aspect of the storytelling here was like he's about to resurrect her, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere the Pharaoh's guards stop him as he's about to say the thing to resurrect her or whatever. And then, oh, what about the wicked CGI of her soul coming out of the black goo and stuff? Which we'll get to see all that later too, which is nice. They kind of bookend a lot of the stuff that we see here in the beginning at the end of the film.
Right. Just like Rachel Weisz posed for the cover of Esquire wearing nylons, that CGI looks really great there.
I'm Googling that right now.
Even the way that he shoots the scenes here where he fails and then all of his men are killed and tortured and then he's tortured and then he's made into a mummy. But the filmmaking there with the use of shadows and the camera movements and the inventive ways they subtly work the CGI in there, but a lot of it is practical. All of that is really awesome. And like you said, the transition from that to the title, and you've got, how do you pronounce the guy's name? It's tough to think about Rachel Weisz and nylons and pronouncing things right when we're already so bad at pronouncing things right.
Have you seen the Esquire cover with her and the snake? Damn.
How many times did she pose for Esquire?
I don't know. Not enough.
It's Oded Fehr as Ardeth Bey, which is the name of the mummy when he comes to modern times and has to live under an alias in the 32 film. It's a little tribute to that, but Oded Fehr doing the voiceover here because he's one of the people who are supposed to be guarding the mummy's tomb to make sure he doesn't come back. And they do the
He's
worst
got the wicked
job.
Tattoos on his face.
Yes, he's really cool. He's great as this character, but man, they're so bad at guarding the mummy.
They really are. They're like, we'll just stand up on this cliff and watch. And like, oh, should we kill that guy who's probably going to like come back later and, you know, unleash this mummy with this chick? And like, no, the desert will kill him. Okay. And then, then he comes back and they're like, this one is strong. Let's just keep watching and not do anything until it's too late.
Oh man, he brought the mummy back to life. Who would have guessed?
Damn it. Now we got to go stop him.
Well, since we're like lusting for Rachel Weisz, the casting here is perfect, right? Because she's the one who brings the mummy back. And the movie knows you have to completely forgive and forget that she's responsible for all the bad things that happen for the rest of the movie. So we have to cast the hottest person
because she's so
possible.
hot, you could forgive it, right?
Everyone in the movie forgets too.
Hottest librarian ever set to film? I'm pretty sure it's a no contest.
Yeah, quite easily. Yeah, so you just forgive her, and everyone else in the movie does too. Brendan Fraser's kind of resistant to it for a second, then, you know, she's like, well, let me change my clothes into something else. And then he's like,
No, I mean, and it's not even like, I mean, obviously she's a gorgeous woman, but the way that she carries herself in this, like, I mean, she's very clumsy, but she's like kind of charmingly so, but she's super smart and very capable, but also kind of dumb at the same time. So it's like a perfect storm of character traits where she's like, oh, I'm going to read out of this ancient book of spells and, you know, that I don't know what I'm doing. She's a fun character. Like, she's very likable, very charming. Yeah, she's got the whole like, well, I'm a brainiac and I don't believe in all the hokum and everything. And, you know, she's put off by his rude manners and all that kind of stuff. But all of that is very endearing. And the romantic tension between them, I feel like, is one of many pillars that hold up this movie to make it, you know, so well done and successful. But it's almost like a romantic comedy in that way, right? Where it's just like, oh, they don't like each other at first, but you know they're going to get together at the end. But that trope mixed in with all the other camp and the fun and the action and everything, it just works. And having Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz together, both gorgeous people, doesn't hurt at all. It's just great. Chemistry off the charts.
Yeah, and you said it. Basically, this movie has something for everyone because you've got the horror, you've got the action adventure, you've got the comedy, very, very funny movie. You've got the romance. It's really everything in one movie. It's insane that all of it works.
Because, yeah, a lot of times you would see something like this where maybe one piece of it is really what it needs to be, and they try and throw in other things and, you know, shoehorn in a romance or whatever. But, yeah, it all just... I mean, you got to give it to the direction and the writing under Stephen Sommers, who's just like knocking it out of the park here. Somehow blended this all and made it work. And I mean, I guess you could kind of say the same thing about Indiana Jones, right? If you think back, it's kind of the template for this because it does have all those same elements. I mean, it's funny, it's got action, it's got romance, and it's got horror. So I guess he's not really breaking the mold here, but I feel like in 99, especially after they made this movie, apparently like the day after it released, Universal called up and was like, we need another one right now.
Right. And this is definitely since we don't have an official Indiana Jones movie for the 90s, this is the Indiana Jones movie for the 90s. And
yes,
when we get
definitely.
to The Mummy Returns, I want to talk about how that franchise handled its first couple of sequels versus how this movie does.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the Indiana Jones film for the 90s, for sure.
For sure.
Speaking of Rachel again, also her Vogue cover is pretty nice. No, the way that the movie introduces you to her is with a great stunt, or it's Vanity Fair actually is the better one. There's a great practical
Thanks
stunt.
for the tip.
Yeah, no problem. Because this movie obviously is known for a lot of CGI innovations, but some of the practical stuff in here is so fun. And we're introduced to her on this ladder surrounded by this huge ring of bookshelves at this old Egyptian museum. And they did a one take, I think it took 8 hours to set up, where she accidentally careens into one of the shelves, and then they all go down like dominoes in a circle around her, and the camera moves in a circle with the shelves, and it's all real. It's not a bunch of CGI shelves. They really loaded up a bunch of gigantic bookshelves with books and knocked them all down like dominoes. It's so fun. And like you said, it introduces you to her character. You really get to know her from this. She's clumsy, but she's really pretty and really charming, and she's funny. And she's one of the co-stars of this movie, along with Frasier. You get the two of them the most, and Vosloo. Obviously, Vosloo owns in this movie. And then you get to meet her brother in one of the movie's great jump scares. There's a few really good jump scares. 1999 had some good ones. And this movie introduces you to her brother, which you don't get a lot of adult sibling relationships in movies like this. So I really enjoy it.
That's true. I did really enjoy their relationship, their contrast for sure, because despite her being clumsy, and I wouldn't say she's not ditzy at all, but I don't know, I guess clumsy and a little, how else would you describe her other than clumsy? I mean, she is charming, she is smart, she's funny. I mean, she's just a likable character. I guess a little buttoned up, I guess is what I'm pointing
stuffy.
at.
She's a little stuffy at first.
She's a little stuffy at first, a little buttoned up. And he's very much, I don't know, he seems almost drunk. I don't know if he's supposed to be drunk in that scene where we meet him as he's falling out of the sarcophagus after he pops up the skeleton and scares her. But he's definitely like kind of womanizing, like drunkard, also very lovable and charming and in his own British way, but much more of the scoundrel than her.
That's right. This is her brother Jonathan, played by John Hannah, a storied British actor who's hilarious in this movie. But again, I think the movie knows, like, okay, you can only take so much of this guy being a lush and being like a treasure obsessed and being kind of a blowhard. So they make sure, if you watch the movie and look for this, just about every time they get in a scrap, other than like the really, really big scrap where there's really nothing he can do at the end, he'll raise his fist up or he'll pull his gun out and be ready for action. He's not just completely useless. He's definitely like ready to go this whole movie if there's some kind of scrap. So I appreciated that about the character.
I did appreciate that too. I think at one point they're shooting somebody, maybe the zombie Imhotep followers later on, and he like grabs Brendan's guns and he's right there with them firing away. So yeah, I did appreciate that. He wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to come in with the witty one-liner or the stupid punchline or whatever all the time. Yeah, I felt like, yeah, you're right. They did a good job of not overdoing that, not overdoing the comedic one-liners. It was just enough. And again, that just goes back to the perfect blending of all this, like knowing when to pull back and, when to let go.
And especially when you have this many characters, we have a lot of characters in this movie that are around for most of the runtime, because you do have your central people, but you got a lot of people tagging along. Obviously, Oded Farah already mentioned. He's going to pop up and join the party in a little while. You have her brother here that we've talked about, but you also have Brendan Fraser's kind of nemesis, kind of best friend. They really have a love-hate relationship, and that's Benny, played by Kevin J. O'Connor, who is also amazing in this movie. He's such a slime ball. He's so slimy. It goes back around to where he's lovable. And like every time he's on the screen, it's the best.
Yeah, he has a certain look to him that he's got that thin little mustache. Later on, he's wearing the fez pretty much the rest of the movie. And yeah, he's so easy to hate. Like you just kind of love to hate him and you want to see him, you know, get his own. There's very many satisfying moments where Brendan throws him off of the boat or he pulls him off the camel, like all, you know, all these different things that you get to kind of relish in. All right, this guy is a backstabbing slimeball traitor, just good for nothing. But yeah, it's very amusing to watch him. And I don't know if you'd say you get a soft spot for him. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, from the first scene with Fraser, where they're part of the French Legionnaire and they're facing insurmountable odds, and he just runs away and betrays Brendan Fraser immediately. And then whenever Brendan Fraser finally has to relent that they're not going to win and almost all of them are dead, he sees that Benny has found a little tomb area to hide in, and Benny immediately sees Fraser running at him and just locks him out. He's like, nope, just for me.
Yeah, I think you just kind of hate the guy from the get-go from there. I don't know. He's enjoyable for sure. I wouldn't say he's like charming, and you do hate him, but yeah, there's something fun about him too, I guess. Like, I really like the scene where the mummy is approaching him and he holds up all the different religious symbols.
May the good Lord protect and watch over me as a shepherd watches over his flock. Ya ilahi, sayyidni alayhi, khafani. No. Okay.
And then he finally holds up the Star of David and speaks in Hebrew, and the mummy stops and he's like, oh, the language of the slaves. I can use you. That was a really fun scene.
Right. And that really sums up Benny as a character really well, too, because he'll just he's just like a cockroach. He'll just do whatever it takes to survive. He'll take on any belief or follow any person as long as it gets him ahead. And It's awesome. Also, Jordan, did you know that in 2010, British readers of Esquire Magazine voted Rachel Weisz woman most men want to marry?
In 2010?
In 2010, still. And the 39-year-old Weisz, whenever she was Weisz, however you say it, she responded, oh my God, really? That's so funny. I'm marryable, but I'm not married. I was getting worried that the men didn't like me anymore. Yeah, right, Rachel. You know we all love you. We still love you, Rachel.
We still love you, of course. Ah, yes.
Yeah, so we've got all these characters, and we've got Fraser locked up behind bars, and it turns out that Jonathan stole this map to get to the city of the dead, Hamunaptra, from him. And Weisz and Jonathan, look, I just said an actress and then the character's name. But hey, the actor's name is John Hannah, so maybe some people call him Jonathan.
Maybe.
They find Fraser in prison, they get him freed, and then you get another one of our characters, and spoiler, Jordan, this is my movie connection. It's the warden, God Hassan, who's, again, he's just like gross. He's like charmingly disgusting. He's always spitting. Right. He's always smelling bad and muttering to himself and singing goofy songs. He's played by the Iranian British comedian, Omid Djalali. Jordan, did you notice Omid Djalali was in our previous film, The World Is Not Enough?
No.
He's in one scene, but he's in the scene where Electra is still pretending to be good, and she spared this ancient site in Azerbaijan from getting bulldozed over, and he's like the construction chief who thought that they were going to bulldoze it, and he runs up to her and he's like, what are you doing? You idiot! We gotta bulldoze it! And she's like, no, it's the wrong thing to do, and he's like, why? And then that's it. That's the only part he's in the movie, but he's in both movies, Jordan. I bet you didn't know that when you picked The Mummy.
Well, I didn't watch The World Is Not Enough twice like you did, in which you've been much maligned by one of our listeners, Sebastian, for watching that movie twice, apparently. So, yeah, that's why I didn't notice that, I guess.
Sebastian is my favorite listener that we have from France.
And we don't know any other French listeners. So if you are a French listener and you want to try and rival Sebastian for Filmshake listenership award, then yeah, you should shoot us some crazy emails like that guy. He made a whole meme in response to that.
If you want to rival him as the best listener from France, just address emails to Jordan trolling me. And I love them. Every email he sends, even if he's not trolling me, I still like the email. In all honesty, I love Sebastian. He's great. Jordan, what's our email address?
Filmshakepodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. Troll me there to Jordan.
All right. So I've got notes on cool stuff, but you're okay. All right, cool stuff. But anyway, you were talking about something.
I was talking about when they get him away from prison.
Oh, but we should talk about him being hung and almost dying.
Right. Do you want to skip over whenever he grabs Rachel Weisz through the bars and smooches her?
No, I don't.
Is it because you're
Why
jealous?
would I want to skip over that?
Oh, you don't want to skip over it.
I wish I was behind those bars. Put me in prison for that.
He's got the old, I got a secret, come closer. No, come a little closer. And then he smooches her. And then he gets in her head and she thinks about the smooch for a while until she gains the sexual politics upper hand on him a little later. And then he's obsessed with her.
By a wardrobe change, basically.
By the wardrobe change, yes. But he gets her with the wardrobe change here after he gets hung. I guess you want to talk about him getting hung, though, and almost dying in real life.
Getting hung, that just sounds weird after talking about all that. Yeah, so apparently the director, Stephen Sommers, was like, I don't know why this was done this way, but Brendan Fraser was really hung, it seems like. I mean, maybe they had it rigged up in a certain way that was supposed to protect him, but it sounded like he was like, all right, don't die. Here you go. Shove, pushed him off the platform. And then Brendan Fraser like passed out and they had to resuscitate him, cut him down from this rope, I guess. I don't know what the hell went wrong, but that's pretty crazy.
He should have followed the instructions better. He told them not to die, and then he almost did die.
Yeah, what are you doing, man? I told you not to do that.
And the last thing that he would have ever done is kiss Rachel Weisz.
Well, I guess he would have gone out on a high note, so at least there's that.
I guess so. Well, Jordan, now you get another awesome establishing shot that's a composite of CGI in real life. It's of the, I think it's the dock in Cairo. You get John Hannah and Rachel Weisz, and they're like, is Brendan Fraser going to show up? And then he shows up and he's all dressed up and fancy looking.
He's all fancy looking. Got his hair cut and the beard shaved. His shoes shined.
I don't know where you're going, but you also
Talk about his shoes.
His shoes
for a minute.
Right. But she gazes into his Brendan Fraser eyes and she's like, oh man, I kind of want him to kiss me again, but I can't let him know it. Mm-hmm.
You know that Brendan Fraser? He's got Brendan Fraser eyes.
It's the male equivalent of Betty Davis eyes, Brendan Fraser eyes.
Rachel Weisz eyes.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. Man, she really did like 28,000 Esquire covers. Like, were these just collectible covers for Rachel Weisz for like 1 year?
Is that a new thing I'm going to have to collect now, Nick? Are you sending me down another rabbit hole?
That's right. Jordan's bought over 100,000 VHS tapes in the past 2 weeks.
In the past 2 weeks.
That's his current obsession. As our longtime listeners know, Jordan jumps from obsession to obsession. I love it. It gives me life. He just sends me picture after picture of whatever he's collecting, and it's amazing. So if you start collecting Esquire covers of Rachel Weisz, I support you. I can't wait for the pictures.
I can't wait for it. Nice.
Well,
that's awesome.
Jordan, they get on this awesome steamboat on the Nile River, and then we get introduced to our competing American team of archaeologist plunderers. I love these American guys. They're awesome. They're being led by Benny. That's their inside man who's been to Hamunaptra. What'd you think about the Americans?
I thought they were very stereotypically dumb and over the top, violent and fun. But I love that. You know, I love, again, this leans into that campy side of things, and it works for this movie perfectly. Kind of cowboy, ruffian Americans playing cards on the boat. Obviously, Brendan Fraser's also an American, but with the British Legion, or I don't exactly understand.
He's a French Legionnaire. We don't get any explanation of that.
Okay, he's a French Legionnaire.
Well, he's basically just like them, but he just happens to be with Rachel Weisz and her brother.
Right.
And they keep making jokes at Americans' expense and then saying, "Oh, sorry."
Right, yeah, no offense. But I do like that this whole scene, one, sets up that he's basically going to take them to Hamunaptra as a thank you for them saving his life. I don't know what he really stands to gain from this other than just like, I'm going to do the right thing. Like, she saved my life, which, shows him as a noble character, kind of puts him above the rest of these other Americans who are just like, we're after the gold. Where'd the gold at? Show me the gold.
I'm going to defend them, though, in a way that I think the movie does in a way, in that it kind of admires them, because we get a big action scene here where Oded Fehr's men, the Magi, who are really bad at protecting the tomb of the mummy, they show up, they get on the boat, you get this awesome night intro shot again, just more great intro shots, where you start at the moon, and then the camera goes down from the moon to the Nile River. Then to their canoes. Then it shifts around to the steamboat going down the river toward the moon and them following it. It's amazing. It looks great. And then they get on the boat. You have this big muscular action sequence where they're all fighting against the Magi. And I love how the Americans are just going crazy with their 6-shooters, just yelling and screaming and shooting. And then Jonathan kind of mocks him and he's like, oh, Americans. And then he gets in trouble. This guy's about to kill him. And then they all turn toward the guy and shoot him like 1,000 times. And it's like, well, they saved him.
I like how everybody else is just jumping off the boat and they're like hiding behind a table in a gunfight
and going,
really ridiculous. Yeah. Yeehaw! But we also have to mention Rachel Weisz is in a nightgown. But I say that because, she's in her little apartment or not apartment, but, her little bungalow or whatever she's staying on the boat, and she's in her nightgown and she's like brushing her hair, talking to herself. And she's like, it wasn't that good of a kiss, and obviously she's kind of taken with Brendan Fraser and struggling against her affections. And then you get one of the Magi attacking her in her little compartment, which was fun. All that was great. Apparently they had to do some CGI once she gets thrown overboard, and her nightgown is a white nightgown that becomes a transparent nightgown. In some of those later shots, they had to cover up to keep this movie PG-13. Which, damn it, I may or may not have, searched the internet for those scenes before they were touched up.
Duck, duck, go. Rachel Weisz mummy nightgown.
Exactly.
It's a great action scene. It's got everything. You got another jump scare there, how the camera pans up from her dropping something on the ground and then standing back up and the scary Magi guy standing there.
Cool little moment where the bullet holes are coming through the wall and Brendan Fraser is reloading his gun and they're getting closer and closer to him. And then she pulls him back like in the nick of time to save him from 2 bullet holes. Apparently that was thought up like the night before by the director to kind of add a little flair to that scene. But yeah, that's just like the little touches and fun action beats that are thrown in. It's a little comedic, but it's a little exciting and thrilling. So I don't know. I feel like that little moment does kind of encapsulate a lot of this movie.
Yeah, it's awesome. You get a ton of laughs here. Him throwing her overboard, that was pretty great.
His warden guy, your world is not enough guy, forget his name. He runs up, he's like, what are we going to do? And he's like, you stay here. I'll go get help. And then he jumps off the boat, which is great.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was another thing I think they thought up on the spot because they're like, oh, well, we didn't write how that guy gets off the boat to be with them later. So they threw that line out there so that then he could be like, oh, damn it. And then he jumps off the boat too.
All of this entire sequence, I'm convinced, only exists so they could have another look how hot Rachel Weisz scene because
yes,
they get into the water. You get your little laugh scene where Benny has all the horses on his side of the river, but then Brendan Fraser yells at him, you're on the wrong side of the river, dummy. And then Benny's like, oh, no. And then Rachel Weisz is like, oh no, all my clothes are gone. So they have to go to this little town, and Jonathan gets them some camels, and Rachel Weisz, I don't know what she's wearing, man. How would you describe the clothes that she gets? This is where she hypnotizes Brendan Fraser, and he's just gaga the rest of the movie.
Oh, damn. Yeah, she's got the little, like, veil on her face covering up the bottom side of her face, but it's, like, a little transparent. And then she's got, this kind of black top and bottoms on. I don't know how you describe, I don't know anything about clothes. She's got black stuff on. And she's maybe showing a midriff. And some cleavage, midriff.
Why the hell did I ask you this damn question? She looks great. She looks really good. And then we're in the desert riding camels.
But here's the thought. What if the movie could have done this? It's like, oh no, all my clothes are gone. But literally she has like no clothes. What if she was like naked during the boat scene? Then she gets thrown overboard. And then, oh no, you don't have any more clothes. That would be like the Spank-A-Vision version of this movie, right? It's like, oh no, you lost all your clothes. Oh well, Rachel Weisz, you'll just be naked for the rest of the movie.
Did you say Spank-A-Vision?
That's a thing, right? Or that's a term that people use in the 90s.
Man,
right?
Look, I just have to tell you, I'm going to be ending this horny party with the next episode. I don't think that there's any women that we can lust over in it. So I guess we got to get it all out now.
Oh no. What have you done? We're on a roll.
Anyway, they're on some camels. They're riding to the lost city of Hamunaptra. The Americans get near there at the same time they do. You get the scene where the sunset reveals, or is it the sunrise? The sunrise reveals the city, and then they have a race on their camels to get there. And O'Connell, who is Brendan Fraser's character that I'm just keep calling Fraser, and just this one time I'm calling O'Connell just to make everyone confused.
Yeah, you're making me think we're talking about the TV show Frasier. Frasier in the desert.
Right. So Niles and Daphne and Frasier are on their camels.
Okay, no. They're confusing me more.
They run into the Americans. Frasier has this bet with them. It's a $500 bet that they'll reach the city first. So then they all take off on their camels with this jaunty Jerry Goldsmith music playing. And Frasier and Weisz, they end up getting out in front. And then Jordan, what is she saying to her camel, and why is it somehow hot? Like, what is she doing to her camel that makes it go so fast? What is that?
Do we know what she says? Is it just like a whisper? Or?
She's just like making these weird noises to her camel, and it makes the camel go so fast, Jordan.
She's whipping the camel. I mean, spanking it.
And she wins. Yeah, her camel goes real fast.
She's spanking that camel.
It goes real fast, even faster than Fraser's camel.
I wonder why. Yeah.
And they get to Hamunaptra. And then, Jordan, I gotta say, I love this movie. There are two very minor criticisms that I'm gonna level at it. And one of them is that I love most of the stuff that happens in Hamunaptra here, but I do feel like they could have trimmed out like 3 or 4 minutes. If there's any point that the movie drags at all, it's a little bit when they're in the City of the Dead here.
Yeah, what parts exactly are you thinking about?
Well, right when they get there, it's fine, and they go down to the underground and start digging around, and you get the really gnarly part where the Americans are about to open this one little tomb, and then their helper, who's played by Jonathan Hyde, who you'll recognize this guy's face. He has this really ominous looking face, and he was in Titanic a couple years before this. He was like, what if instead of you opening that, why don't you get our rented diggers to open it instead? And they do, and hot acid spurts out and boils all their skin off.
That's pretty awesome.
God, dude, it looks so good. The CGI integration to their bodies and faces looks amazing. It looks like dudes are really burning to death from acid.
Looks awesome.
It does. All that's cool. I like the ominous Jerry Goldsmith motif whenever they start getting close to where the mummy is. But then you just have a lot of kind of repetitious scenes of them around the fire. I mean, you do get some exposition there where Weisz gives her background about her parents and her dad coming to Egypt and her mom being Egyptian. She comes into play heavily in the next movie. All that's fine, but it's just a lot of them around the campfire. The Magi come and attack, but then they attack them just to tell them, you have a day to leave, or then we'll attack you again and kill you. And it's kind of repetitious.
Like after they've killed half the squad.
Right.
Right. It's like, okay.
Right. It's just like they're there just a little bit too long. It's like a 2 hour and 5 minute movie. I feel like you could have cut it down to just 2 hours and maybe cut 5 minutes out somewhere right here.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like insanely boring. It just goes on just a tiny bit too long.
Yeah, I could see that. I'll concede.
All right. Okay. And then they find the mummy and he's all gooey, man. He's all gooey and nasty looking.
I love that the mummy is gooey. And I like that they wanted to avoid pretty much this whole movie, the stereotypical like mummy and bandages kind of vibe. So we never really get that other than in the very beginning where he's being mummified, which, you know, we didn't really go into, but they cut out his tongue, his eyes, and then they mummify him alive and throw all the scarabs on him, which is wicked. But yeah, I like that when they open it up, it's like, oh, why is he still decomposing after 2,000 years? He's all gooey, which is awesome.
Yeah, because that's the curse of the mummy. He has to live forever in perpetual torment. But, of course, the flip side is if someone does dig him up, then he gets to live forever and he becomes all powerful. Which, I don't know, man. Maybe they should have just tortured him until he died.
Yeah, like, I don't quite understand how that curse works or is beneficial. It's like, okay, we're gonna make him live forever in torment, but if you wake him up, he's gonna destroy the world and bring the 10 plagues of Egypt back on the world. So wait, why did y'all do that again?
Really comes back to bite them. Like, maybe if you were going to do that, you should have got some better guards over the tomb than the Magi in this movie.
Or, you know, like, maybe if they wanted him to be tormented forever, there's like a catch. Like, okay, we want this guy to be tormented forever, but for that to work in our magic world, if he's woken up, these are the consequences. So, I don't know, maybe it's like a give and take with the curse.
Yeah, maybe so. But they awaken him. The Americans have the jars of, I think it's Amuxunamun's organs. So now they're cursed too. He's awake. He wakes up because even though everyone tells her not to and tells her what's going to happen if she does it, Rachel Weisz reads from the Book of the Dead and resurrects him just because she wanted to read it. Not because she wanted to resurrect him. She just didn't believe that it would happen.
Do they tell her after, though? Because, like, basically, she's a librarian. She's been obsessed with this book since she was a kid, right? So, I mean, it all does kind of make sense. I'm a librarian, so I empathize. It's like, oh, this cool book you've been trying to track down your whole life that, you know, is the reason why you became a librarian, why you're interested in Egyptologists and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so she finds the book, steals it from Jonathan Hyde, and is just kind of like reading over it with Brendan Fraser. And he's like, oh, what does it say? She's like, oh, let me read it out loud for you. And then she's reading it, not quite sure what she's reading, I guess. And then he wakes up and he's like, don't read from the book. And then, oops, it's too late. You've already woken up the mummy. But yeah, the Magi are really bad because they're like, oh, I guess she's got the book. Oh, wait, I guess she's reading from the book. Oh, no, the mummy's awake.
And then there's a storm of locusts that come in. The distant swarm they CGI'd, but on the set they had a bunch of real locusts. So Jonathan Hyde really is covered in locusts as he gets into the fetal position.
Which may be like the most ridiculous scene in the movie. Where he's just like, everybody else is run inside, but for some reason he's clutching the book. Like, I don't know if he's sitting down or on the ground or whatever, but you just cut to a close up of him with the locust all over him. And he's just sitting there really still. And what does he say? He's like, what have we done? That shot is so ridiculous. Of him with the locust all over him. She's like, I'm just going to sit here while the locusts swarm all over me.
Well, tell me what you think about this. In GQ magazine, in July of 2002, Rachel Weisz is on the cover, and the title that they put next to her is Sexy, Single, and Very, Very Hot. Rachel Weisz explodes.
What?
That's what it says.
Is it the GQ sex issue?
It said,
with her on the cover?
Voted the best men's magazine in Britain. It's, I think, issue 236. Oh, no, it has 236 pages. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at it right now.
So they get back to the city. They get back to Cairo. One thing that I didn't really
I need
get.
5 minutes. I'll be right back.
All right. While Jordan's gone, just make sure you don't bring your microphone with you. They get back to Cairo. Now, I don't get here, and it doesn't bother me, but it is kind of just like random, like, oh, we could do some cool CGI stuff and some gnarly effects stuff here. If, for some reason, the mummy enacts all of the biblical plagues from the Old Testament.
Right. Well, not all of them, because I think they do like 5, and then they just kind of forget about the rest of them.
They do, yes. All the firstborn children are not killed by the mummy. That definitely does not happen. Yeah, they just snag a few. Like, the effects for this will be cool.
Which they are. It's cool. Like, you got the fire coming down. Apparently, they painted dog food white to mimic hail, which was a fun little tidbit. You've got the river turning blood. You got the darkness. You got the locusts, like we said. Do we ever get frogs? I don't think we get frogs.
No frogs. No frogs.
No frogs.
The water and the whiskey turns to blood.
The whiskey turns to blood, yeah. Which is fun.
So another one that happens is everyone gets boils.
Oh, yes. Boils are kind of lame as far as the plagues go. It's like the least interesting one. But that's kind of like the final plague here is like, oh, I like how her brother Jonathan is like quoting from Exodus every time. It's like, and then fire rained down and then darkness covered the land. And it's just an interesting contrast because he seems like the least biblical character in this movie as far as, he's the blowhard and everything, but I like how he's the one quoting it. But yeah, then the boils show up and he's like, oh, and then, the final plague, the boils, and then somebody else is just like, he's turned all these boiled people into his slaves, and they're basically just like walking zombies. Chanting Imhotep.
And I love the gothic horror aspect of all these scenes too, because it's like a bunch of big crazy things like that, and the eclipse is cool and all that, but also the mummy he's got to take basically like the skin and the organs and the souls from the Americans. I think it's 4 guys, right, that he has to take it from. So you get these scenes, and some of them are kind of a nod to the 32 movie, which I should mention, I rewatched the 32 movie for this episode. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, so I've watched The Mummy 1999 3 times this year. One of those was again for this episode, and I did watch the 32 one, which is very different from this, but they did take some things from it, some inspiration. For instance, the mummy only being an actual wrapped up mummy for just a short amount of time. That was a nod to the 32 movie because Stephen Sommers loves that movie. That was the only mummy movie he had seen. He hadn't seen any of the Hammer films.
Yeah, and apparently it was like the first horror movie that he had ever seen inspired him to want to make movies or something.
He's interviewed in the extras for the Blu-ray, which I also watched, of course. And yeah, it made a big impression.
Did you watch the Dragon Warrior mummy movie?
Yeah, it's terrible. We can get to that when we get to the punishment. That would have been a way worse punishment. If you don't like Returns, man, don't watch The Tomb or the Dragon Emperor. That one is really bad. Yeah. I got it all 3 on Blu-ray a long time ago in like a 3-pack.
Nice.
But yeah, all these scenes are really cool. You have this gothic horror, this really like sensual element to the mummy here where he's a shadow and he turns to sand, like I mentioned earlier. And you get a lot of just great, cool shadow work and some really inventive angles and a ton of atmosphere mixed in with the plagues. He's scared of cats, which is kind of funny.
Well, yeah. And like you said, him regenerating and having to kill all the Americans, and he kind of slowly comes back together. But then the fact that when he is like fully reformed, he's just like a very dashing, handsome mummy guy, right? Like very Egyptian looking. Arnold Vosloo, obviously not Egyptian, right? He's British.
He's South African, actually. And somehow he's not Billy Zane's twin brother.
Yeah, that's true. He maybe that's why I like him so much, because he looks similar to Billy Zane.
Right, which he appreciates. He does not mind when people think he's Billy Zane.
I guess you wouldn't, right? Like, hey, you look like that other good-looking actor. No. But yeah, I think there was a moment that they cut out where when Rachel Weisz sees him, once he's like fully formed, and she's like, he's beautiful. But they left that out.
Right. They don't want you to think that she might be falling for the mummy over Brendan Fraser.
Well, at the same time, that would have been kind of like an interesting angle.
It would have been interesting. I feel like it would have ruined the tone of the movie, which is why they cut it out, I'm sure.
Maybe so, yeah. I mean, it probably would have confused things a little too much. Wait, she's into the mummy guy? Did they have sex? No. Did his penis regenerate too?
Well, eventually, he does have to strip off one of the American guy's penises, right? If he's got to take all their different body parts to become whole again. And he wants to bring a Nuxuna Moon back, which means he probably wants to bang a Nuxuna Moon, so.
Which American guy was that? Poor guy. He got the bad rap of that deal.
He did. Yeah. Well, I think they all got a bad deal, Jordan, since they all end up desiccated corpses.
Yeah. Oh, and apparently, so he sucks the life force out of them. One fun trivia bit was when we see the desiccated corpses after he sucked out their life, these are the same props that they used in the 80s movie Life Force. Speaking of being a horny teenager with Melinda May.
Matilda May, you son of a bitch.
Oh, no, I'm a son of a bitch.
How dare you disgrace her name.
They could have gone full Life Force and had Rachel Weisz just, oops, I lost my clothes. the whole Mummy movie. But yeah, I thought that it was cool that they used the same props for the desiccated corpses from that.
Yeah, man. I had just seen Life Force the year before I watched The Mummy.
Nice.
That's quite a film. Quite a film.
Quite a film. Got it on VHS.
Yeah, you do. You have it now. Yeah. We don't have Twitter or any whatever you kids use these days to talk about stuff. You just found out about things randomly. And maybe you saw this like I did on the Encore channel at 1 a.m. And you're like, what is this? Right. And then you told maybe a couple of friends about it. I watched this movie and there's this chick in it. But now everything's just at your fingertips.
That's right.
What I'm saying is 1999 was better than now, Jordan. I'm sorry.
Always. That's always the story on Filmshake.
It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. I've said this for the past 5 years and across multiple events that were happening. Across different time periods, the 90s is always the best. I'm like the Mummy, Jordan. I just want to grab a Nuxuna Moon. For me is the 90s, and I just want to resurrect them and then go live with them in the city of the dead together and be surrounded by a bunch of rotting corpses. Jordan, isn't that sad?
No.
Yeah, it's not sad. It's freaking awesome. That's why this movie's so good.
It's freaking awesome. Yeah, Nuxuna Moon's hot. Come on.
She is when she has her skin on. She's not that hot when she's like all rotted and stuff.
Rotted and mummified, yeah.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the Mummy. So he gets everybody. There's so many cool things, man. First he has that metal mask before he's gotten all his flesh back.
That is pretty cool.
And Benny's just helping him get all these guys. And then you have the really, really, really awesome part. It's like the mummy shot, the money shot for the movie where he's in the street. He's just killed the Jonathan Hyde character and they look down and see him on the street and he looks up at them and he's 3/4 of the way regenerated. So his face is still all rotten and he's got a bunch of like rotten spots on him. And he looks at them and just roars and flies just pour out of his mouth, Jordan. That's the 4th biblical plague from the Bible is flies.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And they just pour out of his mouth and fly toward Brendan Fraser and John Hannah. And it looks amazing. It's so awesome. And then Jordan,
Go ahead.
But what's cooler, that or whenever he kills the other guy and he still has like a hole in his neck and a hole in the side of his mouth and a scarab crawls out because we got these scarabs that eat everybody's flesh.
And then he eats it?
Yeah, it crawls out from his neck hole and then goes into his face hole and he chews it and swallows it.
His face hole. Yeah. He's like, oh, I can't break the habit. I've been doing this for 2,000 years. Gotten used to these scarabs. No, I really appreciate the CGI of the Mummy's jaw getting really long and extended. He does that multiple times, but with the flies, that's a pretty sweet moment. Anytime that he just roars and he gets really mad, or like when he sees the cat and it's kind of a goofy, campy moment where his eyes kind of get real big and scared and his jaw goes really long and he screams, and then he obviously just turns into like a sand cyclone and vanishes out the window. All that how does this movie look so damn good for 1999?
Not for 1999, because of 1999. I really think that the movies from that year look the best. The cinematography for that year has got to be like the greatest year of cinematography, because it's like the peak of film. It's before everything started going digital. It's like people have reached the peak of craft with making film look good. So many of the films from that year just look incredible.
Well, and that, like we talked about, not only do the effects still hold up, but it's blended with a lot of practical effects, a lot of real stunts. So, and a lot of camera trickery, inventive angles and compositing and all that stuff. So yeah, it's just like a perfect blending of all that, before everything goes digital, like you said. So you still have all those elements, and they've used those two things together all through the 90s, like from Jurassic Park on. So yeah, I feel like you're right. This is the peak of them having learned how to take all those things and put them together in a successful way. So it's one of the best looking 99 movies I've seen, for sure.
That's whenever you weren't getting lazy and saying, let's just do everything CGI. It's like, CGI will augment this. Even if there's a lot of CGI, it's going to augment the practical. So yeah, that's a great point that you just made too, because it's like everything's at the peak. The 90s were the peak. They were the peak, damn it. Get me back to the top of the mountain.
If only.
Well, you get a big, awesome chase scene through the streets where they're in a car. They're trying to protect the last guy that's still alive that the mummy has not gotten yet. And they have all these kind of zombie dudes. It's all the people who live there that have boils on them, which I don't know why the plagues only affect them, and Brendan Fraser isn't covered in boils and trying to help him with a tattoo.
That is a good point. Like, I guess he had to be Egyptian. I don't know.
But Rachel Weisz's character is supposed to be half Egyptian, so like half her body should be covered in boils,
Well, you can't put boils on that woman, dude. Come on.
Yeah, you can't.
She wouldn't have been on the cover of Esquire then.
Or GQ.
Or GQ. Or Vanity Fair.
Yeah, they would be like, instead of Rachel Weisz is about to explode, it'd be like, her boils are about to explode.
Nobody wants that. I don't know, unless you have some sort of weird boil fetish, but anyway.
There's a fetish for everything, man.
Yeah.
Someone is listening to our podcast and our voices and being like, yeah, talk more.
I don't want to think about that.
Well, they're out there, Jordan, and they're doing it.
Don't tell me that.
They're doing it, Jordan. Who knows where they live, where they are, but someone's doing it, Jordan. It's happening. It's happening.
Oh.
All right, so the sequence ends with the mummy being victorious. He ends up getting the last guy and getting his body back. And we find out that if he gets his body back completely, then he'll be invincible and all-powerful. And he's able to escape with Rachel Weisz. There's another character we haven't even mentioned, Jordan. That's Eric Avari's Dr. Terrence Bay. He was Rachel Weisz's boss at the museum, but it turns out this guy's actually part of the Magi, and you'll recognize this guy. He's in a lot of awesome 90s stuff. He was in Stargate. He was in Independence Day. There's something likable about the way this guy looks. I don't know what it is. He was in the 13th Warrior that year, too, which Jerry Goldsmith also did the music for, and they're very reminiscent, the two soundtracks for both movies. This is a better movie than the 13th Warrior, but they both have good Goldsmith scores.
Yeah.
Anyway, the mummy is victorious, and they just barely escape with their lives. And they have to go see an old friend of Brendan Fraser's. And again, Jordan, just the coolness to the visuals here and how interesting everything is. There's this old World War I fighter pilot who's just an old man who his entire squadron died. And now he just lives in Cairo still, He mans the last plane there, and he just spends his days getting drunk in Cairo and complaining that he didn't die a hero like all his friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something so awesome about that this character has 2 minutes of screen time and has a full arc, because you meet him earlier in Cairo. And the scene of him sitting out in the middle of the desert, drinking his tea next to the record player with the plane in the background looks so awesome.
I love that guy. And that is really cool. I didn't think about that, but you're right. He has a whole arc, even though he's a very, very minor character within this. But yeah, it's like the perfect little step in this action adventure where, okay, now we're meeting another character and he has his own personality. He has his own backstory. All that's given to us through dialogue. It's very cleverly done. It's not like an exposition dump or narration or anything, but we immediately know who this guy is. And yeah, of course, he's a bit of a caricature, just like, oh, he's this old drunk British pilot, but I don't know. It works really well. It's really fun. And then you feel kind of satisfied in that he gets what he wanted. They go through the sandstorm later and the plane crashes and he dies. And it's bittersweet, but it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's great. And he's played by storied Welsh actor Bernard Fox, who is Colonel Crittenden in one of my old man's favorite shows, Hogan's Heroes.
Nice.
Yeah, when he finds out that he's probably going to die on the mission, he's like, yeah, get on this plane right now. Let's go.
I like how they don't have room for Jonathan and they strap him to the wing of the plane. Just another little fun detail.
Yeah, not just Jonathan, but Ardeth Bay as well. And he's enjoying himself a lot more than Jonathan is. Jonathan is not happy, but he's just making
He's got this big goofy smile on his face.
Yeah, it's awesome. He's really good. I mean, like everybody, he's really good in this. And you get your showstopper CGI sequence here. That was the poster for the movie where the mummy is with Rachel Weisz and Benny and is like, oh, they're following me in this plane. So he lifts up the sand with his evil mummy sorcerer powers and makes a gigantic sand facsimile of his face and sends it against the plane. Brendan Fraser screams and fires the plane's Thompson machine gun into it. It has no effect. Just when it seems like they're going to die.
Shooting at sand.
Yeah, shooting at sand. It just doesn't work, unfortunately. But Jordan, what did work?
What did work was... What did work? I don't remember. They crashed.
I guess you maybe had to leave the room for a few minutes after the scene and then forgot what happened. But Rachel Weisz makes out with the mummy, Jordan.
Oh, that's right. She kissed him. She kissed the mummy. That's what worked.
She kisses him as a distraction. And the plane still crashes, but they don't all die. Only Captain Winston Havelock, Bernard Fox's character, dies. And you get this very noble music as the plane sinks into the sands. Our three heroes here, Brendan Fraser, John Hannah, and Oded Fehr as Ardeth Bay, go into the Lost City. Ardeth Bay grabs the Thompson machine gun from the plane. Really cool little moment there. And another little cool touch. The cool touches that you would be talking about after watching a movie now, because I think movies now aren't that good. You'd be like, oh, that was cool whenever he pulled the gun off of that plane. That would be like the one cool part you talk about in a movie now. But in this movie, there's like 1,000 parts like that.
There's 1,000 good parts, yeah. And I knew there was another moment with Rachel Weisz or somebody kissing the mummy, because I feel like there's like 10 scenes of that, or 10 scenes of somebody kissing somebody. But yeah, that was a fun moment where it's like, oh yeah, she's gonna use her sexual prowess to distract him. Obviously, he's taken with her, or at least we think he's taken with her, thinks that she's an Oxamoon, but I guess later we find out he's just gonna kill her and use her to resurrect his lover. I'm not sure how all that worked exactly.
Yeah, he's gonna sacrifice her, and when he does, an Oxamoon's spirit is gonna rise back into her body, and it won't be a disgusting desiccated corpse anymore. It'll be
the beautiful Patricia Velasquez.
That's it. So they have to go rescue her. And this is like your big 30-minute ending action sequence. It's all pretty rad. You get so many nods to other things that are cool, but you get like a ton of original stuff that's cool. The mummy resurrects all his followers. So you have Brendan Fraser getting in this rad, like Ray Harryhausen type fight with these CGI mummy things that look like they're real. They don't look like CGI from 25 years ago.
I know, it's crazy. And apparently he meticulously acted as if he was fighting them. He meticulously choreographed like all his moves as if he were fighting these creatures that weren't there. But damn, if you can tell watching this, it looks so good. You're just completely absorbed in the moment. It's just peak cinema. It's amazing. It's great. And I love, speaking of Idle Hands and movie connections, and that Idle Hands was in our Fangoria magazine you were talking about. I love the moment later where he's pinned down by these guards and they're about to kill him. He's trying to get the sword and he's got to wait for this crawling hand that's going over toward the sword. He waits for the hand to grab the sword, and then he grabs the disembodied hand and then uses that to defeat the guards. And yeah, loved it. Loved the little horror moment there with the crawling hand.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And then I like whenever you get the even like gnarlier dudes where it's like the Viking type mummy guys. They've got like the big gnarly hats on, and they're just bigger and stronger, and they have like scythe looking swords, and then he has to fight them. And apparently part of the time that was like guys in really cool looking evil mummy suits. But then when they do things like jump on the walls, then it's not that anymore. It's CGI.
No, yeah, just lots of cool stuff. Yeah, and just again, fun moments, comedic moments. You've got the classic. He runs into some doorway into a room, and then he runs back out as they're all chasing him. That kind of stuff. I want to say the crawling hand thing might have been later on with these guys, but they're also like trying to fend off these guys until Jonathan can figure out some hieroglyphics to read on the book, and then he finally takes command of the mummies and sends them after Anuxamun because she's been resurrected and is trying to kill Rachel Weisz.
Yes, it's their first cat fight in the Mummy series.
Yes.
The first of several.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of Rachel Weisz and animals, Jordan, if you'll look up ID magazine Rachel Weisz cover in your
how
web
many
browser,
of these are you? How are you just Googling or DuckDuckGoing this while we're talking the whole time?
You'll find Rachel Weisz in a low-cut dress, winking at the camera, wearing bunny ears, and the caption is "Hop to it!" Exclamation point, rabbit! Exclamation point, rabbit! Exclamation point, rabbit! Exclamation point.
What are you doing to me, Nick? Why?
She also is wearing a men's necktie that's tossed over her shoulder.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm looking at it.
So look,
I'm studying it.
My other minor complaint about this movie is during this big sequence here where Jonathan's trying to read from the book and Fraser's fighting the little mummy acolytes and Rachel Weisz is fighting the evil, crusty corpse of Patricia Velasquez. Arnold Vosloo just kind of vanishes.
Yeah, he's just kind of sitting back, like watching, not really doing anything.
Yeah, he's like the Magi whenever they're like half-ass guarding his tomb. Here, he's like really not trying to help anything. He just vanishes and they don't even show him for like 2 or 3 minutes where he really should be acting and doing something. And then finally there's like a reaction shot of him and he's like, no. And it's like, bro, what were you doing this whole time?
Right. That is my biggest complaint too here at the ending, where it's just like kind of lazy writing, kind of stupid, where they read from the book. Then I even forget. How do they defeat Imhotep and take away his immortality?
It's another really cool visual. This reminds me of my childhood love for the movie Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and also The Phantom Carriage, where they take basically his immortal soul away. So that the spell that Jonathan reads takes the soul to where this awesome, gnarly, spectral chariot comes down.
Yeah.
And the horses with the awesome plumage come down and take his soul away from him.
So that was all from him reading the spell?
That's right. That at any point, Arnold Vosloo could have taken the book and beat Jonathan to death with it, but he just watches and lets him do it.
He just watches him. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. Well, yeah, and then what's even more dumb is after the chariot comes down and they take his immortal soul, Brendan Fraser kind of finally stands up and got the sword again. And then Arnold Vosloo like turns around after his soul is gone away up into the heavens with the chariot. He turns around and then just like starts walking toward Brendan Fraser and then just like walks right into the sword and gets stabbed in the stomach. They're like, really, dude? Like you weren't gonna fight more than that? Or you're just kind of like, oh, I guess I don't know that I'm not immortal anymore. I'm just gonna walk right into the sword.
I think he kind of killed himself there too, though, because at that point Noxuna Moon was gone. That option was off the table. They've taken her out. So I think he was just like, I'm really pissed, but also like, just kill me.
Well, if that's the case, I feel like they could have played that up a lot more, because I didn't really quite buy that or get that vibe.
Or he's just so arrogant that like he doesn't even think he can be killed.
That's the vibe that I got, but that also just feels kind of stupid.
It's like the one little blemish on this movie, besides the other tiny little thing I said.
Well, I don't know if it's tiny. It is a major moment in the climax where it's like, oh man, that could have been a little better. But otherwise, yeah, this is a pretty dang near perfect movie.
Yep. And the mummy's dead, Jordan. He's gone. Benny is, the whole time that they're doing all this heroic stuff. That's right. Now, he does say death is only the beginning, right? Whenever he's dying, which is kind of haunting. Because this is a horror movie in part.
It's haunting in that, like, this death is only the beginning of my torment, basically.
Right.
That you kind of feel bad for the mummy a little bit in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, he is a tragic character, even though he's kind of a dick.
Right. Ripped off that one dude's dick.
He sure did, and he just put it on his own body.
I need that back. That was in the jars. All along 4 dicks.
That's all that was in the jars.
That's what was under that loincloth all along. He had 4 dicks.
Oh Lord. I'm not going to go where I want to here. Actually, I don't want to go there. Where I want to go is away from that. Yeah.
You want to go to another Rachel Weisz magazine cover? How many more are there?
She posed for a lot of magazine covers. They like to put good-looking women to sell copies. And I'm imagining they sold many copies of all of these.
Yep.
But also, Jordan, Benny is in this temple. Benny is looting it. But the thing is, Benny is so greedy. He gets a bunch of loot and puts it on his camel. And this is a great little character beat that they didn't have to do, but they did, where he has enough. And he knows he has enough. But then he looks back at the temple and is like, I could just get a little bit more. And it ends up killing him because he goes back in there just as they're killing the mummy and the whole temple collapses and he gets trapped and he basically gets the mummy's fate where all the walls come down and he's stuck in this main chamber, this treasure chamber, and the light from his torch slowly goes out just as all the scarab beetles come in to devour him. So he's dead.
Well, I do like the beat right before that. He's trying to get out and Brendan Fraser and everybody else have already escaped. And Brendan Fraser, noble-hearted, gold-hearted man as he is, he actually tries to help Benny get out, and it's too late. So sorry. Goodbye, Benny. He actually says goodbye, Benny, like 3 times in this movie. But that's our final goodbye, Benny, because yes, he is trapped with the scarabs and gets eaten. And it's pretty wicked.
Man, you hit that IMDb trivia hard.
Did I? Oh, him saying goodbye, Benny 3. Yeah, I did. I feel like I haven't read some IMDb trivia in a while for a movie.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
That used to be like your go-to for things more than Fred Ward's trivia book.
But yeah, I liked that little noble beat of Brendan Fraser, like trying to save him. But yeah, this is the end of our arc here. No, Benny, you've been too greedy. You've been a dick to everybody, so you have to die.
I like your explanation there. Like, again, if this movie was made in current Hollywood, I feel like someone would say that to him. You can't just think that and like realize that is why he's dying. Someone has to vocalize that. Like, Benny was a dick to his friends and very greedy, and now he's paying the price. And then he dies after someone.
That would be the narration at the end of the movie.
Right, the voiceover.
Just in case you didn't understand that.
Yes. So Brendan Fraser and his love and her brother, they get out of the city as it's collapsing. They run away as everything's falling. Rachel Weisz is running and running and running. And then she runs some more, and then she runs some more, and then they get to the camels. They escape. And then there's the last jump scene of the movie where Ardeth Bey has survived, because there's a scene where he sacrifices himself to save everyone by kind of kamikazing I was about to say the Nazis. Kamikazing the mummies. This, because I'm thinking Indiana Jones, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so Indiana Jones-like here, because you've also brought the supernatural in to like a classic setting like this.
Do we get any melting faces, though?
Sort of.
Oh, the guy's melting.
Yeah, the acid
when
guys.
They open the chase. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's pure Indiana Jones.
Oh, for sure. And it's even a chest being opened, right? So that's definitely got to be a nod. A direct nod to it.
Oh, yeah. To Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, so Ardeth Bey gives you the last jump scare of the movie where they're all like, oh, we made it. And then he pops out and is like, hey, I made it too. And then they ride off on their camels. And Jonathan's like, oh, man, I didn't get any treasure. But what they don't know is Benny loaded the camels up with treasure for himself. But now they get all the treasure. And they're rich for the next movie, Jordan.
Well, also, I think he has the line where Jonathan says, I guess we're going away from this empty-handed. And then Brendan Fraser looks at Rachel Weisz very sultrily, is like, well, not exactly. And then they kiss. You know, I love a good kiss at the end of a movie. This movie's full of mummy kisses, but we get a good hot kiss right here. And then they are riding away into the desert on the camels, and it's awesome. And that's the end of the movie.
What I love about this movie, though, is for folks who don't like the romance, and they're like, is that the end? You get Jonathan there watching them kiss, and he's like, is this the end of the movie? They just kiss. Yuck. And then he looks at the camel, and he's like, how about you, baby? You want to kiss? And then the camel kind of breathes on him, and he's like, ugh. I like that. That was pretty funny.
It's a good little comedic beat, yeah, to add in. And then, like you said, they're riding away on the camels, and you see the treasure that Benny was hauling away on the camel. And the little glint from the gold, and you know, I like that little touch there at the very end. We see the gold kind of glint in the sunset, and yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a great movie.
Jerry Goldsmith's score takes you out through the end credits. Obviously, every time I watch this, I watch all the credits, Jordan, and that's the movie.
Of course you do.
It's The Mummy.
Of course you do.
It's The Mummy. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Love this movie. Not quite perfect, but it's so awesome.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm right there with you. 4.5 out of 5.
Man, one of the few times we've agreed this year. If you don't like The Mummy, though, like, what were with the critics who gave this bad reviews? Because this is like 40% of the critics who watched this in 1999 gave it bad reviews. What's wrong with them?
What is wrong? Yeah, like, how can you not like this movie? I don't get it.
I guess if you hate life.
Movie connection, you were saying something about with Benny at the very end there, the gold and all the treasure that he was getting. You know, he had enough, but it just wasn't quite enough. And so it made me think of the world is not enough for Benny. Obviously, our main connection here between the world is not enough and the mummy would just be one word: boobs. And burlesque pasties, you know, my story about New Orleans.
Right. You know, if you type in 58008 in your calculator and then flip it upside down, it spells boobs.
Was this middle school again?
Oh.
You got to have one of those old school calculators, though. Can't do that on your phone anymore, kids.
Phones. Ugh.
Ugh. Technology.
I've got another thing that you might be able to say to, Jordan. And that's our punishment movie, 2001's The Mummy Returns.
I mean, it kind of sucks, but there's some cool parts.
Yeah.
That's my main note.
There's some cool parts.
We talked about this in the Stir of Echoes. I kind of hate little kids sometimes in these kind of movies. Like, they're doing hijinks and they're thwarting the dim-witted bad guys, and it feels like a Disney movie. But that's just the worst to me. But one of the main problems I feel like is the romantic tension that you had between Frasier and Weisz, and that kind of like, will they, won't they? She hates him. He can't stand her kind of thing. Like, I mean, that's a trope for a reason, right? It works if it's done well. But I feel like that was one of the best things about the original. And then I just wasn't feeling this whole like married with a kid, doing adventures thing. The kid's in trouble, blah, blah, blah. It just felt too like Disney family friendly-ish. And the writing is just not quite as sharp. You got one-liners like, I hate mummies. It's just like, really, dude? You could do better than that. But the double-decker bus is pretty cool, that fight scene. And I don't remember anything else.
Well, it's too much retread, just starting from the beginning. So you get a big fancy intro for this movie, just like you did for the previous movie. And this is introducing you to the Scorpion King, who's played by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and like really his first movie role. And the thing that immediately lowers this movie from the original is that the whole point of the sequence in the original movie is to introduce you to the mummy. So they're introducing you to the threat, but also the mummy is a major protagonist in the film as well as antagonist. Because if you want to look at the movie from a certain angle, it's the mummy's story. He's trying to get his body back and his lost love back. You know what he wants. There's something tragic about it. And it's there the whole film, all the way to the end. With this movie, you get the story of the Scorpion King, and then that's it. He's not in the movie again until the last 5 minutes as a CGI monstrosity, and the movie's not about him at all. So that opening scene is just a bunch of empty spectacle that doesn't add anything to the film other than empty spectacle. And that's really the whole movie. It's just empty spectacle, larger takes on the previous film. And I hear you. I agree with the family dynamic. And this is where I got to bring up Indiana Jones. I love the original Indiana Jones trilogy. I love the Temple of Doom. I love Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as much as I love Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people who agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I know a lot of people who love the second one too, and if that's your bag, that's your bag, you know? If that's what you like, go for it.
And I love The Last Crusade as well, but in a way, The Mummy feels like a natural sequel to The Last Crusade in a way, because The Last Crusade really kind of ups the amount of like there's like a party at the end, right? You got Indy and you got his dad and Sala and you got Marcus Brody. They're all there at the end. It's not just Indy and the girl. Really, the girl here betrays him in The Last Crusade. And then you get to the mummy and it's the same kind of thing. It's not just your main character and then the girl. He's got this whole party of people along with him.
Yeah.
The action scenes in The Last Crusade are also more truncated. You don't have really drawn out action beats in that film compared to the previous two movies. It's shorter, quicker action beats. The action beats in The Mummy are more in line with that. So The Mummy feels like a natural follow-up to The Last Crusade. But that's not my point. My point is that Temple of Doom does something different from The Last Crusade. It's still a huge adventure movie. It still brings in archaeology and religion, but it's a totally different tone, and it's just indie, right?
Hey, lo-fi editing note. I mean, Indy is the only character from Raiders of the Lost Ark that carries over to the Temple of Doom.
Like, if you were going to do a sequel to this and keep the quality up like the original Indiana Jones trilogy did, I'm just going to ignore the other two movies because they suck. And they're done long after this original trilogy of films. Yeah. Is the indie movies, you go from the first film and you go to the next and it's just indie. So I don't know if there is a way to do this movie with just Brendan Fraser and bring in a different woman and bring in a darker tone, because you don't have to bring back the same exact villain for the movie. It's the same villain again. Vosloo is the main villain for the film. The Scorpion King just comes in at the very end. So bring him to South America or Central America, and maybe there's like an Aztec mummy. Like, it could still be the Mummy series, but there's like something different. You could even go the Temple of Doom route with making it darker And maybe it's like he brings back like a mummy that like sacrificed children. You know, the Aztecs and the Mayans are famous for murdering a lot of people and sacrificing a lot of people, especially children. Maybe you go dark there, or maybe you just go there to get a different environment. Because this movie at the end, it feels like it's like, oh, we got to feel a little different. We've been in the desert the whole time like the other movie, with the same villain as the other movie, with the same character and love interest as the other movie. Let's have a jungle environment for like these last 15 minutes. And it just makes me think like, well, why didn't you do that like the whole movie? Like Temple of Doom leaves the desert and it goes to the jungle for the whole movie.
In its favor, they do go to London in the beginning. And so you have, a bit of a different environment there.
But Jordan, does that environment really feel different from the Cairo environment when they're in the museum in the first Mummy movie? It's like very Victorian Gothic, just like that is, other than the double-decker bus part.
Yeah, I was going to say, mainly because of the double-decker bus and their giant, Victorian mansion that they're living in now. But yeah, I hear ya. It's lame.
It's frustrating, but there's like a lot of cool set pieces. Like the production design is awesome until you get to the really bad CGI at the end. Everything looks great. I mean, Rachel Weisz and Velasquez look even better in this movie, and they get in a massive fight in ancient Egypt that's like a really cool sequence that I don't think anyone dislikes. You've got the big bus sequence, like you said. Really, that bus sequence caps off like a series of action scenes that are all very fun in the beginning. And I like elements throughout the film like that. There's some show-stopping sequences. It's just, it feels like a joyless retread. And when I saw this movie in 2001, the thing that kind of sucked about it is it felt like the hope of the 90s or like the promises of the 90s were gone. Like with this very movie.
With this very movie. Yeah.
I think that 9/11 definitively not only killed the 90s, but I think there was a century that felt like it was gonna happen that was really bright and hopeful. Like, we survived Y2K. Like the future is wide open. Everything is just so optimistic. And then 9/11 happened and it was like, damn, everything's gonna suck. This isn't what we wanted or what we thought was going to happen. And look, I'm not being like a total black-pilled fatalist here. A lot of cool stuff has happened too. But the century that was promised isn't what happened. And I feel like The Mummy Returns is like a precursor to that, Jordan.
It's all The Mummy Returns' fault.
I'm blaming The Mummy Returns.
Ruin this century with your terrible movie. No, I mean, the fact that the studio immediately called up Stephen Sommers like after the first one was released and was like, we need another one. I feel like you can feel that all throughout this movie, where it's just like the studio wants more money, so we're going to make this thing. And it feels really dumb to bring back the Mummy after everything you did in the first one to defeat him. Is like, oh no, now we have this weird cult that's going to bring him back to life. I don't know, shouldn't you have broken the curse in the beginning and like took away his immortal soul and then he was killed and went into the black goo? Like how's that really gonna work to bring him back now? I don't know. It just feels dumb.
Yeah, like they could have come up with something better. And even if you kept Weisz in, which I mean, keeping her in's cool because everyone loves her in the first one, but maybe there's like a different way to do it. And again, okay, bring back like my child sacrifice thing. Say he does have a family with her and a kid, but then the threat isn't like at the end of the movie, there's like a twist where she gets killed and they have to bring her back. But what if like at the end of the movie, like they have to save their kid from getting sacrificed by the evil South American mummy? I don't know. Something different. There's like nods to the first movie nonstop too. Like, remember this from the first movie? Just over and over and over again. It's so frustrating. I actually saw this twice in the theater because the first time I saw it, and I've mentioned this before, it was so loud. It was the loudest I've ever heard a movie turned up in the theater. It was at the old Tinseltown off of Segan Boulevard that was only open for like 3 years. And it was like the biggest, most ridiculous expression of 90s cinema. Like they just went so over the top and made everything look like so space age and huge. There was no way they were ever going to pay back the construction cost in that theater. And it went out of business after a few years. Again, that's another thing that couldn't survive the 90s. Like it closed, I think, not too long later. I think 2 years after this. But I went and saw it a second time because I thought, you know what? Maybe my expectations were just too high the first time, or maybe there was something I was expecting. What if I go in now with no expectations? And I just got the same feeling, and it just goes on and on. It's like 5 minutes longer than the first movie, but it feels like it's an hour longer than the first movie. It's a bummer.
Honestly, I was watching this double feature of watching the first one and then this one, and I just straight up fell asleep probably like the middle of this movie.
Yeah. I may shock you here, though. I'm not going to like totally pan the score here. The soundtrack is really good. You got Alan Silvestri doing the soundtrack now. I think that's great. The sequences I really like a lot, and we mentioned most of them. I don't like the PS2 Scorpion King at the end, PS2 cutscene Scorpion King. He looks awful. I don't know who thought audiences, this is good enough for them. This is what audiences who paid for this movie deserve, is to look at this monstrosity. It should have just been Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, especially after the first one being a 99 movie, you want to improve upon that, right? Not make it look worse.
Right,
It's just like, how did you go from top-notch visual effects in 99 to PS2 garbage in 2001?
It's crazy. I don't know, man. I don't know. And you got The Rock. Just put The Rock in it for real. Like, it would be believable that if Arnold Vosloo and Brendan Fraser fought a jacked up The Rock, that would be an even fight where, like, it would be really hard for them to win. You didn't have to turn him into some ugly video game cutscene scorpion thing. I don't know. That was stupid.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of things I do like about the movie. And it looks great. The production value outside of that bad CGI is very high. They spent $100 million on this thing, and it looks like it. I can still give this a 5 out of 10, Jordan.
All right. I don't really feel like I can rate it having fallen asleep in midway through it, but yeah, I mean, as it was going, I was probably going to lean into like a 3 or 2.5
out of 5.
Yeah, out of 5.
Yeah. Did you see The Scorpion King the year after this?
I did. I think I saw that in theater.
Yes, I did as well.
Pretty sure I saw all these movies in theater. Remember it being pretty much trash, but maybe a little fun.
It was fun. It was like fun trash. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It was just like dumb, fun trash. It was like a WWE movie. It was fine.
Exactly.
I enjoyed it. It's directed by Chuck Russell, who's you're going to get like not a great movie, but an enjoyable, entertaining movie. Schwarzenegger's Eraser. You know, it's like a lot of fun, and it's dumb, and I enjoyed it. I don't think about it much, but I'd watch it right now. So, by the way, Jordan, they made 5 Scorpion King movies.
5? Was Rock in all of them?
No. They did 4 direct-to-DVD movies after this.
Damn.
No, The Rock is only in the first one.
How did I miss the 4 other ones? God, this GQ cover is hot.
It might be hot, but is it going to be as hot as this trivia battle?
Hold it! Pop quiz, hot shot.
Dun, dun, dun. Hey, Nick, guess what?
You did not write questions.
Wrong.
Oh,
I
no.
did write questions.
Oh, I'm scared.
Why? Why are you're more scared that I wrote questions?
Yes.
Than
What
if I
does this
didn't.
mean? What
does this mean?
What devious methods have you devised to attempt to defeat me?
No deviousness. It's just I love Brendan Fraser. Wanted to pay even more tribute to our boy here, so all my questions revolve around Mr. Fraser.
Ah, okay. Well, that's nice of you. All my questions revolve around Jonathan Hyde.
There you go. All right. I thought you were going to go with Arnold Vosloo, honestly.
Nah, that would be too predictable.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Hyde, I feel like there are just a lot of movies that I've noticed him in where he's just really noticeable, where it's like, well, who's that guy?
Right. One of those that guys.
All those movies are mentioned here.
All right. All of them.
No, not all of them. Some of them are.
Okay.
All right. What you got, Jordan?
All right. First question. Brendan Fraser's first film role, other than a TV movie, was in 1991's Dogfight. Which actor starred in Dogfight? Was it A. Mickey Rourke, B. Matt Dillon, C. River Phoenix, or D. Keanu Reeves?
It's going to be like this then, huh? I don't know. Mickey Rourke.
Ah, wrong. It was River Phoenix, my friend.
Oh, okay. Never heard of that.
One of my favorite actors and really good movie. Just came out on Criterion, actually. Him and Is it Lily Taylor? I think he's in.
I like Lily
yeah.
Taylor. Maybe I should watch this.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and great connection there because River Phoenix plays young Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
There you go.
And for some reason, I used to get him confused with Kurt Cobain a little bit when I was younger.
River Phoenix?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Interesting.
Something about their energy. And
they both died young.
Yeah. All right, here we go, Jordan. Enough of that crap. Jonathan Hyde played the butler in 1994's Richie Rich. Who played the younger version of Richie Rich in flashbacks? Was it Kit Culkin, Rory Culkin, Kieran Culkin, or a de-aged Macaulay Culkin?
Oh, so it's going to be like that, huh?
It is.
I have no idea. Was it Kieran Culkin?
Wrong, it was Rory Culkin, I say, as I take my Tylenol PMs to prepare for my eternal slumber.
Are you going to eat scarabs along with those Tylenol pills?
Well, roll around in my sarcophagus tonight.
Yes. All right, next question. Brendan Fraser played the character Link in which Pauly Shore films? Was it A, Encino Man, B, Son-in-Law, C, In the Army Now, D, All of the Above, or E, George of the Jungle Boogie?
Oh, that's mean, because I was about to just say Encino Man before you said and, but there's another, I remember there's another one he makes a cameo in, but I don't remember which one it is. All of the Above would be something you would do, but are you doing that trick thing where it could also be A and B or A and C?
You could choose one of those.
I could choose one of them or like two at a time? You weren't specific.
Do whatever
enough.
you want. What's your answer? What's your guess? You get it right, you get it right.
I'm just going to say A and B.
Wrong. It was all of the above.
Well, I thought you were going to try to trick me.
I reverse psychologied you.
Ugh, you did.
No, it was Encino Man was, his character Link, but then he did have cameos in Son-in-Law and in the Army Now with Pauly Shore.
Man, I haven't seen In the Army Now in like 30 years.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. In 1995's Jumanji. Jonathan Hyde played one of his most memorable characters, a big game hunter named A, Van Neff, B, Van Pelt, C, Vanderlei, or D, Van Keel.
Was it Van Keel?
No, it was Van Pelt, my friend.
That's what I was going to guess. I changed my mind.
Same with me and all of the above. Oh, well.
All right, next question. Brendan Fraser plays Chaz in Airheads as the lead singer and guitarist of the band The Lone Rangers. The Lone Rangers' hit single, Degenerate, is actually a song by which 1980s punk group? Was it A, Black Flag, B, Dead Kennedys, C, Reagan Youth, D, Social Distortion, or E, Murder Junkies? And that's a real band name.
I have no idea. Murder Junkies. You kept going. You were like, this could be the answer to a question, but then this could be the question, but then this could be the question, and then you ended up there. I have no idea. Murder Junkies.
It was not Murder Junkies. It was Reagan Youth.
All right. One of us has to get one of these stupid questions, because let's be honest, both of our questions are stupid.
You're just mad that I actually wrote questions.
Yeah, no, this is inexplicable that you actually did your homework. What was Hyde's character's name in 1997's Anaconda? Was it Eastridge, Westridge, Northridge, or Southridge?
Is it Eastridge?
No, it was Westridge.
Damn it. Okay. Have we got any right so far?
No, this trivia battle is a bigger abomination than the actual idea of the mummy itself.
All right. Let's see if you can get this right. Who plays the villain, i.e. the douchiest character, at least, in the Brendan Fraser starring 90s flick School Ties? Was it A, Ben Affleck, B, Matt Damon, C, Chris O'Donnell, D, Amy Locane, or E. Vaginosaur Jr.?
Man, I only saw this once. My sister was watching it and I was on the computer, and then I just kind of paid attention.
Lo-Fi Editor's Note number 2. Did Jordan really give Vaginosaur Jr. as an option and I didn't even notice?
I think all the people that you mentioned, except for maybe the last one, were in this movie.
Vaginosaur Jr. was a punk band, actually. I looked up the most abominable punk band names, and that's where I found Murder Junkies and Vaginosaur Jr.
Obviously, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in the 90s, and a lot of the time, just both seem like giant douchebags. So it would be believable for either one of them, but then it would be against type for Chris O'Donnell to be a douchebag. You'd think he would be the one that's sticking up for Brendan Fraser, because if I remember right, he was Jewish, right? So everyone picked on him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Team America has just forever put in my brain that Matt Damon is an idiotic douche, so I'm going to guess Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
It was Matt Damon.
Yes.
You got it right.
Yes.
And he's like the most douchey prep rich kid in this movie. It's just so infuriating. Amy Locane comes in second, though, because she sucks in this movie. She betrays Brendan Fraser, so F her forever.
Oh, what a bitch. What if this is why I don't like him? Like, what if it started with me half watching School Ties while I was on the computer in the mid-90s, and I was like, God, what a douche.
I like Matt Damon in a good bit of stuff.
I love him in the Bourne movies. I love him. Like, he's great in those. That's one of my favorite characters.
What about Good Will Hunting?
You know, I never watched all of Good Will Hunting. I just never watched it. I don't know. We'll have to cover it one day.
Was that 99 or 98?
That's one where, like, I've obviously, like, remember the big scenes. Like, it's not your fault and all that stuff. But I don't think I've ever sat down. It was 97, by the way. I don't think I've ever just sat down and watched the whole movie. Maybe one day.
One day we're going to have to cover George of the Jungle and Good Will Hunting. Maybe we'll do a twofer.
Oh, no, you can't do that, right? You can't cover both in one episode. It's just too much.
We'll cover Under Wraps and George of the Jungle.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
What's your next question?
Which famous businessman did Hyde play in 1997's Titanic? And it was the one in real life that I think most people thought was by far the douchiest of these four. Was it A, John Jacob Astor, B, J. Bruce Esme, C, Isidore Strauss, or D, Benjamin Guggenheim?
Astor?
No, he played J. Bruce Esme.
Okay. I don't know.
Sorry, Jordan. You still haven't gotten a question right.
You've gotten one. So let's see if you can get my last question right or wrong. Either way, I think you win.
Okay.
And I've talked about this movie not too long ago, I think on a bonus episode. So let me see if you remember anything about a movie that you said sounded like you'd probably hate. But this is In the Passion of Darkly Noon. Brendan Fraser plays which character? Was it Clay, Jude, Quincy, Darkly, or Dogface?
Is it Dogface?
Is that really your guess?
No, is it Jude?
No, it was Darkly.
Oh.
It's in the title of the movie. Passion of Darkly Noon. That's his name.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. You win either way.
Well, I do have one question left, Jordan.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So you could tie.
Let me see if I can redeem myself.
You could tie. In which film did Hyde co-star with our recent James Bond, Pierce Brosnan? Was it The Tailor of Panama, The Matador, Mamma Mia, or Mace Me?
Was he in Matador?
No, he was in The Tailor of Panama. I'm sorry, Jordan. You've lost again.
I've never even heard of that movie.
Really?
No.
It's from the same year as The Mummy Returns of 2001.
Well, maybe that's why, because The Mummy Returns just killed cinema in the whole century, apparently.
Oh, man. All right, Jordan. You've been defeated. It's a huge shock to our listening audience, but
Huge shock.
You put up a valiant fight. You asked some great questions, and I'm proud of you, Jordan.
Did I make my tiger mom proud that actually wrote questions?
Yes, very proud. You may have failed the test, but damn it, you did your homework.
That's right.
Well, this was your last pick for 1999. for this year. For 2024, it was the 25th anniversary. And you picked a lot of kind of horror movies, actually.
This is true. I didn't even intend to do that with The Mummy, but yeah, that kind of goes along with all my other picks.
Yeah, your last two were Idle Hands and The Blair Witch Project. Interesting. But Jordan, I feel like this was sort of an olive branch in an attempt to bring the show to a lighter place. You said, Nick and I, we haven't totally agreed on a lot of movies this year. I know we're both going to love this. How optimistic is it that The Mummy's just such a fun movie? We'll have such a fun time talking about it. Well, that's when I come in and I say, Jordan, not so fast. It's 1999. There's a month and a half to go. Everyone's fearing doom deep down in their minds, fearing the darkness, feeling the existential pain. Jordan, The World Is Not Enough is the second to last movie I saw in theaters in 1999. For our next episode, our final 1999 episode of this 25th anniversary. It's the last movie I saw in theaters, Jordan. Remember that whole cyst thing I talked about earlier in the year, where I thought I was dying of cancer for the vast majority of the year before I found out, you dummy, you just have a cyst and it needs to be removed. It's a common cyst.
Oh, it's kind of like a boil.
Yeah, kind of like a boil in your lower tailbone. If you would have just showed this to the doctor or your parents right after it happened, you could have immediately had surgery and saved yourself a full year of thinking you were dying, you idiot. But I finally went to the doctor, and they did diagnose it as a pilonidal cyst, and they said, you need to get surgery, but you might miss some school. Why don't you wait till school ends right before Christmas break? How about you come here on December 22nd, and you get this thing removed, Nick? And I said, I will. You know what I'm going to do right before that? I'm going to go to the movies one last time, maybe the last time while I'm still alive on Earth, and I'm going to go see Frank Darabont's The Green Mile.
Oh, no.
That's right,
Nice.
Jordan. Thought we were going to end on a happy note? Wrong. We're going to end on the bleakest, most nihilistic note possible.
Oh, man. Now I have to buy that double VHS set.
Yeah, it's a big, fat double VHS. Yes, it's a long movie. It's 3 hours long.
All right. So that's the punishment, right?
No, incorrect. That will be the main topic.
That'll be the main pick. Yeah, I know.
But Jordan, you've picked some respectable movies for punishment. Like even The Mummy Returns. That made $400 million.
Yeah.
My last pick was The Legend of the Titanic, which didn't make any money. It's one of the worst movies ever made.
Not very respectable. Right?
And I'm going to keep that train going. I feel like the punishment movie should be a damn punishment.
Which you usually watch and punish yourself with anyway.
Okay, well, let me try to sell you on watching this with me. Jordan, this movie stars Christopher Lambert.
Okay.
Raiden himself.
Yep.
And he's got a big sword in this movie, Jordan. And the cover
Highlander?
is blue tinted. No, it's 1999's Beowulf, a futuristic sci-fi retelling of the classic epic poem Beowulf.
All right. Wait, I'm thinking of the CGI one that was...
I think that was Robert Zemeckis. He had Angelina Jolie coming up out of the water in that. I didn't love it at the time because it was a huge departure from the source material. I love Beowulf, the actual epic poem Beowulf. I wrote a very long and extensive college paper for an upper level class that I got 100 on, Jordan. Damn. I know all about Beowulf.
Are you not a fan of this one? Or have
I've
you seen
never
it?
seen it, and I'm not expecting it to be a faithful adaptation, whatever. I'm just expecting it to be a terrible film. An enjoyably terrible film, Jordan.
I'm sure it'll be trash. Yeah.
And listen to how awesome this friggin' soundtrack is. That makes me even more excited. You got Juno Reactor, who did techno music for The Matrix, the second and third Matrix movie, or one of them. Damn it, one of those. You got Pig, Jordan. You got Fear Factory again. You got Gravity Kills. You got KMFDM. You got all this weird electronic music coming in here and industrial music to an adaptation of Beowulf, Jordan, with Christopher Lambert, where he lives in the future and has a gigantic sword.
Nice. And how are we connecting this to Green Mile, or is that just because it was 99?
I've been wanting to watch it all year and needing an excuse. And I know that like the Green Mile is a prison movie, and this movie, it takes place in like an outpost where it's basically like the Grendel monster has made it into a prison for the people who are there. So it kind of connects there, Jordan, a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It came out in 1999.
There you go. A very respectable drama pulling on your heartstrings and some sci-fi trash. I love it.
Right. And if that didn't sell you, Jordan, this description from Wikipedia might. This film blends its original genre with tropes from horror and soft pornography, but it also retains and expands on its original elements.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's full on trash.
It's full on trash. I picked it just for you, Jordan. I'm trying to make you happy.
It's like a Christmas present.
It is. Because I know the Green Mile is probably going to be torture for you. It's all serious and long.
No, I mean,
fall asleep.
I've seen the Green Mile. I enjoyed it. So it's just, it's one of those where it's like one and done. I probably would have never rewatched this.
I watched it in the theater. Like I said, it was so depressing and so emotionally brutal. I have never seen it again. So this will be the first time I've watched it in 25 years.
Exactly. Yeah. Same here. I feel like I've only seen it once. But yeah, I feel like this is kind of what this show is meant for in a way. Gives you an excuse, or it kind of gives you motivation to go back and watch some of these that you maybe would never revisit otherwise. And hey, then you can come back and talk about your cyst and how you thought you were dying and all that stuff too.
That's right, because the Green Mile is so long.
So long.
To quote the film.
All right, well, on that note, so long, listeners. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the show. You can email us at filmshakepodcast@gmail.com, especially if you're French. And you can find us on all the things at 90s Movies Pod. Reach out to us and say, hey, over there on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. And as always, we'll catch you next time for more Filmshake.
Take it easy.
Lo-Fi Editor's Note number 3. Unfortunately, there wasn't a blooper or a goofy moment that we could cut out from the episode and paste in here at the end. So instead, here's a joke. A priest, a rabbi, and a mummy all go to a bar together. It's been a rough week, and they all get blackout drunk. The next morning, the priest and the rabbi wake up in bed together, covered in bandages. The priest looks at the rabbi and says, "My God, Barry, what have we done?" The rabbi looks back at the priest and says, "Don't look at me. She was your mother."